Okay, we're back again. I hope you can hear me. I'm so sorry. I got some notifications from people who said they couldn't hear me. I hope you can hear me loud and clear now. All right. So I'm so glad I hadn't gone so far with it before the notifications came on. So thank you. Thank you so much for informing us. We appreciate that. All right. Can you hear me now? Are we good to go? Great. Okay, so say something to our audience.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're calling from, you're joining from. It's a pleasure to be here. And today we'll be talking about emotional intimacy. Why is it important? Why are some couples able to build it? Why are some couples not unable to build it? So that's what we'll be looking at today.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I was just going to put out our definition of intimacy. And for the benefit of those who did not get what I said earlier, I was referring you to our video from last week, Intimacy Overflow, feeling deep connection again with your spouse. And we did say it is possible to have intimacy in an overflowing state, yes, in the relationship. All right, so before we get on, I will start with our definition of intimacy. Intimacy is a state of emotional safety which creates the ambience for deep and meaningful connection, vulnerability, disclosure, and the development of a common history and rhythm. Last week we breezed through it, so I think we would like to go a bit deeper today because in there are packed so many things that every marriage needs, right? Emotional safety, a state of emotional safety. No wonder we're talking about emotional intimacy today. A state of emotional safety which creates the ambience for deep and meaningful connection. All right. And last week I was asking, how deep is your connection? How deep is your connection with your spouse? Okay. And then we have vulnerability, disclosure, and the development of a common history. We've come together to form a history. Okay. We've come together to start off something. We're forming a nation. And then tomorrow our children will be making reference to our own relationship. I'll let you say some more.
Yes, I was just enjoying listening. So another thing is that building a common rhythm. The thing about intimacy is that to get to that point where you don't have to say too many words or so many words for your spouse to really understand what is going on in your mind. It's just about you. Sometimes just a look can send a signal. Just a look can let your spouse know that you are not happy about something, or you are happy about something, or you are giving your approval. It's that common rhythm where you just know what is your spouse's stance on an issue. Maybe in a situation where you're unable to reach them. So you build that common rhythm that helps you walk and weather the storms of life. Right? Many couples go through, every couple go through challenges. Every couple. No matter how good you are, no matter how experienced you are, there will be challenges that will come your way. But whether you're going to survive it, whether that challenge is going to be an end or a bend, is based on the quality of the intimacy you have built. All right. I was saying to some couples we were talking to yesterday, we were saying that you build what do you call it now? So you prepare. Is not the day to perform. It's not the day to prepare. So preparation must precede performance. You must get to that point where you build so much deep and meaningful connection that no matter what comes at you from outside, both of you can weather and survive that storm. And that's it. It's not when the storm comes, you now begin to try to build connection. No, it's before the connection. That's why this topic is so critical. Because this topic might be the changing point for the challenge that you're going to face in the next couple of months. That's why it's very important that you are here at this time. Sometimes a spouse can lose an income. Sometimes a couple can lose a child. And some people have lost children before, and that led to the disintegration of that marriage. It shouldn't be. So that issue was not the thing that led to the disintegration of the marriage. The disintegration of the marriage only showed that there were already problems there. All right. So it's not what happens to you, but how you manage it. That's why emotional intimacy is so important. Yeah.
Emotional intimacy is so crucial. And one thing you said that really, really resonates with me is with emotional intimacy in place, you're able to weather any storm. With emotional intimacy in place, you're able to weather any storm. It doesn't matter what comes at the couple, they're able to face it head on. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, so let's share a bit about the components of emotional intimacy. It is easy to hear emotional intimacy, emotional intimacy. What makes up emotional intimacy? I'll let you go first.
Well, that's a very important question. Why? Because once you understand the component of emotional intimacy, you will now be able to reproduce it in your own relationship. All right. It's like understanding the recipe for making a secret sauce, understanding the recipe that makes something exciting, understanding the recipe for making a particular, maybe vanilla ice cream, strawberry ice cream. Once you understand the recipe, you can reproduce that over and over again. All right. So that's what we mean by the component of emotional intimacy. So the first thing I would like to talk about is sharing. Sharing is very important for couples to be able to have this deep and meaningful connection that we're talking about. They must be able to share at a very deep level. You know, it's not just those hello, hi kind of sharing. We're talking about sharing about your views on an issue, sharing about your beliefs on an issue, sharing about your feelings, sharing about your aspiration, sharing about your secrets. Those type of sharing are not the type of sharing we do with just anyone. The person must connect with you at a specific level. That is what we mean by sharing. So the first point is sharing, that deep and meaningful sharing. So critical. That's why we discourage couples who share personal challenges, personal issues with people that they are not emotional, they are not romantically connected. It's different if the person is your mentor, but there's a level of sharing that builds connection. You wouldn't realize it. Hearts will begin to link together, and the heart is a very tricky place. All right, very, very tricky. The second component of intimacy is caring. All right, when you have someone that cares for you, by caring in this context, we mean serving each other. Where someone reaches out to you to help you do something that will help you, make life convenient for you. You know, maybe you are feeling lonely, the person reaches out to you. You are feeling overwhelmed about your task at work, the person reaches out to you, asks you, what can I do to make this better for you? These are little things, little areas. You go down the stairs to make a cup of tea. You make a cup of tea for the two of you, not just doing the things only for yourself, or trying to reach out to someone or to your spouse because of what you can get from them. So the question I like to ask couples, for example, if your spouse is no longer that guy that earns six figure, which was one of the things that attracted you to him or to her, will you still love her? Will you still love him? All right. So are you in need because sometimes we might be in a relationship because of what we are going to get from the spouse. We might not even realize it. All right. Are you in a relationship because you love her for who she is, or because you love what she can produce or what she can access, or because of the access that she can give to you? All right. Why exactly are you in this lady's life? Why are you in this guy's life? So that's very, very a reflective question we need to ask each other. The another key component is connection. Connection. So, but in this context, connection means emotional contact. Emotional contact. Because there are many people who might be in the same physical space, but they are not in the same emotional space. They might be in the same room, physical space, but they are not in the same emotional space. They are worlds apart. All right. One person is talking to somebody in Singapore, another person is talking to somebody else in Africa. They are completely disconnected. They are just going through the motions, or they are in a relationship because it's too expensive to get a divorce, or they're in there because they want the children to get to a certain age. That is not the kind of connection we're talking about. Connection in this context is emotional contact, where even though you are living apart, or maybe your spouse traveled, or your spouse is doing something for a while, so they are away for a while, but you guys have this emotional connection. You touch base on a daily basis. I mean, there was a time I was away, my wife was here, we constantly communicated. So though we were thousands of miles apart, but we were constantly communicating with each other. So that's what we mean by emotional contact. Getting in touch, getting involved in someone's life, finding a way to care for them, finding a way to share deep and meaningful stuff that nobody else knows. That is how you build emotional connection. That is how you build emotional intimacy. And so what happens in a situation whereby, now just why this is important is you get to that point where there is something you heard about your spouse, which probably is not true. But because your spouse has built that level of connection and trust, you are able to give them the benefit of the doubt. You are in a better position to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so much later, we're going to be talking about the benefit, why emotional connection is so important, and why we keep talking about emotional intimacy in a relationship. All right, so why couples must prioritize it, particularly busy couples who are busy, who are, constantly doing one stuff or the other. It's very normal for you to kind of put your marriage at the back burner. That is not going to be helpful at all. All right, a healthy marriage helps in a number of ways, which we'll be highlighting today.
Awesome. I like the point you shared. Okay, and I think I'll just bring it together by putting out John Powell's levels of communication. Oftentimes when we say you need to have deep and meaningful communication, you were talking about having emotional contact. That cannot happen if communication is breached, if there's no communication between the couples, the spouses, right? So when we talk about that, I really love his levels of communication. And then I love to look at it as a pyramid, okay? So when you get to the base of it, it's that level where, it'll be like when you first met your spouse, okay? Hello, hi, you discuss trivia stuff, things you can discuss with anyone, okay? There's nothing special about this stage. And then you get on to the next level where you can talk about facts, okay, obvious things such as, there's a football match tomorrow. Man U will be playing tomorrow. Chelsea will be playing on Sunday. Things like that. So really basic stuff. And then you get on to the next level. At this point, bear in mind, I've just told you, it's a pyramid. So it's closing up. The higher you go, the more it closes. Okay, so you get to the next level, which is the level where you can express your views about a thing. Your opinions, what you think about it. This is what I think about this. This is what I think about what the other person did. Now, this is a higher level than the level of sharing facts, because at this point, it's expected that you begin to build some level of connection with this person. And then we get onto the level where this is where a lot of spouses who complain about emotional disconnection do not get to, okay, or may have dropped from. And that's the level where they can share their feelings. How beautiful is it that you are in a relationship where you can share how you feel? Okay, you don't have to keep it all in there. You don't have to pretend you're okay. You can share how you feel. And that's why you see, when we started, we're talking about having a state of emotional safety. If I don't feel safe to share what I have in mind, I won't share it. And so you see things like stonewalling, because sometimes people get so overwhelmed, it's all too much, and they decide, or people get to the point where they feel unappreciated, unacknowledged, and they just feel, okay, I'll stop sharing. And so they cut you off, they cut the other spouse off, all right? Or some then resort to silent treatment, will just be the relationship, okay, and not talk, which is further breakdown of communication. All right. So when you get to that point where you're able to share your feelings, and this is why we encourage spouses to get to that point where they train each other to be able to communicate. You don't want to train your spouse to be used to not expressing his or her feelings, okay, per time. So it's okay if at that time it's not convenient, or you feel emotionally drained because maybe you've been stressed out, okay, you can ask for some time, but ensure that your spouse expresses how he or she feels. Because some people will say to you, okay, when the spouse comes and says, I'd like to discuss something, they get so tense because they're thinking, oh, I must have done something wrong. It must be something really, really intense for you to be coming to me like that. Okay. And in that state, because they're not emotionally ready, they wouldn't want to talk about it. That's fine. But you can say to your spouse, can we talk about this later in the evening? But it is your responsibility to ensure that that thing is talked about. Okay. So if that person has reached out to say, I want to talk, okay, it is your responsibility to ensure that talking actually takes place. And then we get to the last level, which is the level of heart-to-heart communication. Hey, every couple must ensure that they get to that point, okay, where they have heart-to-heart communication. You can truly, truly pour out your heart to the other, knowing that I will be acknowledged. I will not be judged for what I have put out there, and at least I'll feel heard. Okay, there was something you were saying yesterday when you were talking to some people, and you were saying it's one thing to listen, it's the other for is another thing for your spouse to actually feel heard. Like, okay, even though he's not acting on what I've said at the moment, I feel like he's acknowledged me. He's acknowledged what I said, and that's really important. Okay, so this is why this is crucial. Levels of intimacy. Every couple must aspire to get to the point of heart-to-heart communication. Okay, I think we have dealt with this really well. Do you want to add anything, or should we move on?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about benefits of emotional intimacy, because people talk, oh, emotional intimacy. But when you know the purpose of a thing, then you're able to appreciate it even more. Okay, and ensure that you do what it requires. So, what benefits are there to emotional intimacy, in your opinion?
Yeah, there are many benefits. One of the benefits is ability to have deep and meaningful conversation. Ability to have deep and meaningful conversation. One great thing about intimate relationship is that you are able to be yourself. You are able to be vulnerable, and that vulnerability leads or opens up an opportunity for people to be themselves, for people to have deep, meaningful conversations, what we call conversations of the heart. All right, conversations of the heart where you can share your heart, you can be yourself without having to feel judged, without a sense of feeling that someone is going to judge you or someone is going to use something against you. You let down your guard. You know, many times we as guys, we are very macho in what we do. We reach out to people, we go out there, we slay, we do great things. As well, ladies go out there, slay, hit their target, achieve a lot. But there is a level of vulnerability you can't really have with your colleagues. Why? Because I remember I watched one particular YouTube channel one time, and the lady was talking about how to work well with your colleagues at work. And she was saying, don't forget your workplace, they are not your family, they are not your friends. All right? You can be friendly, but they are not your friends. Don't expect don't expect the loyalty and the don't have the same expectation for a close friend with a colleague at work. Now, does that mean that you cannot become friends with a colleague at work? No, you can't. But what she was trying to say is that don't project that expectation on people. It's too much burden on them, all right? And you might get disappointed. Draw that line. If it happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, but don't project that on anyone. And that's very instructive in this context. So what she was trying to say, don't go to work and be sharing deep and meaningful stuff. That's what's supposed to be exclusive, something you share exclusively with your partner. So to not have all that, you're doing all very well out there, and you get home and you can't really connect. That is so sad. And many people are in this situation. It was never like that at the beginning. They were open, they were vulnerable, they were sharing, but something went wrong somewhere. And it got to that point where you were so careful about saying anything. You're so careful about discussing about your own extended family. You're so careful about discussing your aspiration. You're so careful because your spouse has become so maybe toxic, someone that will try to sabotage your progress. And so that is a good place to be. So being intentional about building emotional intimacy is about focusing on building deep, meaningful conversation, and it's very therapeutic to have one person that listens to you without interrupting you. Oh my word. Without judging you, without having that look in their face that's more like, what is she saying? What is he saying? That really, really listens because they really care, because they are really interested in your well-being. Is powerful. You can't wish it, you can't wish it away. It's something that you desire. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, very good. I mean, great points you shared. Then I think there's also the thing of it just reduces the level of conflicts you have in the
Yes.
relationship. That's so crucial. Okay, as people get emotionally connected, they get to that point where it's easy for them to understand each other. You're able to tell when your spouse is in the mood or when your spouse needs a moment. Okay, so you're not so forceful about, you've got to hear me now. Okay, so you just know you just know that time, and then it would lead to some unnecessary conflict. And even if conflict resolves, you are able to resolve it faster. Okay, because of the connection between you. That's really crucial. And then it just reduces stress because people get on, they carry on. We're carrying so much. People, I mean, as you go out, you have loads of things to do. It is expected that you come back to your loved one, and that's somewhere you can call my safe place. It's my safe place. Okay. And like you were saying, it's therapeutic. Okay. So imagine coming back, and I'm coming back. It's like a place of refreshing, a place of rejuvenation. How cool is that? All right. So with all of this in mind, we should tap into the benefits of emotional intimacy. Then another one I think you didn't mention, which is really important, is quality sex life. Hey, with emotional intimacy in place, quality sex life, right? You know what? Say again.
I say absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So when you have quality sex, I mean, we know what happens during sex. Hormones are released. Okay. All right. Bonding hormones. So you feel even more connected to your spouse. Okay. You just see yourselves loving each other even more. You feel softer towards each other. Okay. And then there are hormones that are released that relieve stress. Some people say sex doesn't do it for them, but I think research has shown that more persons find relief from it. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, another thing I would like to add to what you said is as particularly around the issue of conflicts. Couples who have strong emotional connection, it's easier for them to forgive. They forgive easily. It's easier for them to give each other the benefit of the doubt. It's easier for them to move past issues of the past. Yeah, very, very critical. These are things that really, really help, because sometimes one of the reasons why people don't survive or conflict linger so long, because people hold on to a hurt even after apologies upon apologies upon apologies. Some people just find it difficult to let go, because now it depends on what the issue is. But we're talking about, generally speaking, now there are issues that some people really like, for example, infidelity. Some people really find it difficult to really move past that. We understand that. But we're talking about general issues like your spouse forgot your birthday, forgot the wedding anniversary, forgot to drop the key, and so you were locked outside. There are some things that, little things that happen on a daily basis, or you dropped his shoe here, she dropped that here, those kind of little issues. Without having good intimacy, you will constantly be holding on to so many things. It will get to that point where you can't even remember what you are angry about, but you are just resentful towards your spouse, which is a toxic resentment. It's like drinking poison and expecting your spouse to die, because it damages your your immune system, it impacts your own health. You who is resenting somebody else, because it's a very toxic emotion to hold on for so long. All right. Another benefit of emotional intimacy is more of, like I mentioned earlier, on helping couples to weather storms. Couples will go through storms. They will go through challenges. All right. This is just a fact. All right. Sometimes having a baby may be delayed. For us, it was almost 8 years. For some people, it might be someone may lose an income temporarily. That was the time I lost an income temporarily. So different things will happen, but it's about how you guys have, the kind of intimacy and relationship you guys have built will help you guys to weather that storm. So you are not going to be now, oh, you are the problem. Why did you not do this? No, this has happened. What can we do? That's a productive way. And that's one of the benefits of emotional intimacy, because this person is your best friend. You won't say that to your best friend. You're like, okay, what can we do to make this better? All right, do I apply here? Okay, you apply here. Okay, can you get extra shifts? Can you get extra hours? You do that so that we can pay off. That's when people begin to strategize rather than blaming. Why? Because once people are not happy with each other, if something goes wrong, they enter into an attack mode instead of a collaborative mode. And that's one of the benefits of emotional intimacy. It helps couples to gain mileage. It helps them to achieve goals faster. There are couples that we have seen that are earning so well, but because they are not connected, they are unable to achieve much. So because everybody's running their own financial agenda, this we're going to be talking about next week. All right, so intimacy is so critical that it impacts every aspect. But for today, we're looking at emotional intimacy. Next week, we're looking at financial intimacy. Why is it that some people earn so much as a couple, but they are unable to have nothing to show for it? And you have some people with some really meager salaries. They've built houses, they've got things done, they've gotten things done because they are in agreement. You cannot enjoy the benefit of synergy without deep and meaningful connection, emotional intimacy with your spouse. You can't. Yeah.
That's awesome. I like how you're saying it. You can't. It's just not possible. Yes.
Not possible.
Okay, we've got some lovely people chiming in. Okay, thank you so much to our great audience. Thank you. I think someone was Tony here was trying to say active listening is a vibe to make the other feel valued. Active listening. Okay, and I think this just brings to mind something about why it's important for couples to be actively present. Okay, talking about some of the components of intimacy, emotional intimacy. You were talking about connecting, having emotional contact. All right, that would not be enriched if you're not actively present. When I'm actively present, I'm making you my focus. Okay, I'm having the eye contact that is required. You're just my object of focus at that time. How beautiful is that? Thank you for chiming in, Tony. And then Esther was saying your teaching on levels of communication is awesome. Thank you so much. Please, let's feel you. Feel free to interact with us. Okay, so let's get on to something interesting as well. Why is it that some spouses are unable to build emotional intimacy? Sometimes when we say emotional intimacy, some people might really be thinking, how do you even do this? Okay, so I think it's important for us to show us to highlight why they're unable to do that, and then they'll be able to see themselves in the mix. And of course, we would give you ways to build it as we go on. So that, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Please, if you have any other thing you want to say as around the topic of benefit of emotional intimacy, please post it and let's get the conversation going. Let's also hear from your own side as well. What are the benefits? How has it benefited your own relationship? Share with us. We'll be more than happy to hear that. So, to your question, why is it that some couples are unable to build emotional intimacy? Sometimes it might be a couple, sometimes it might be a spouse. According to Dr. Doug Weiss, he said something, he called it intimacy anorexia. Intimacy anorexia. You may have heard the word anorexia before, which as regards eating, where some people intentionally starve themselves because they are trying to lose weight, and they can look at themselves that they are almost like skeleton, bonish, yet they are still starving themselves. They are afraid of eating. But in this situation, intimacy anorexia is a situation whereby someone intentionally withdraws intimacy from their spouse. Emotional connection, they withdraw spiritual connection, they withdraw sexual connection for different reasons. There are different reasons why people do this. So when your spouse consistently and intentionally withdraws emotional connection, withdraws spiritual connection, and withdraws sexual connection from you, intentionally withdrawing this, that is intimacy anorexia. Now, the question now lies, why do people do this? Why will someone who walked down the aisle 5 years later, 10 years later, 2 years later, begin to withdraw intimacy from the spouse they profess before everybody to love, before everybody to cherish, to look after? Why would someone do that? Sometimes these things are as a result of the experiences people had when they were growing up. Maybe what do you call it now? Sexual trauma. Someone that was sexually abused as a child, all right, may have that fear when it comes to getting intimate with someone. They may have that concern that, oh, I don't want that, because getting intimate, maybe because the person who abused them was obviously someone that was close to them, and the person took advantage of their innocence, of their trust. It's difficult for some of these people to be able to build intimacy with anyone. So you find yourself, this happens to some singles. They come to you, they say, I don't know why every relationship I get into, after a period of time, it kind of disintegrates, and I don't know what's happening. And then you begin to study them, you begin to notice a pattern. And that pattern often is about, they get into a relationship, the graph goes up, it's high, they're happy, they're connecting. Once the person begins to get closer and begin to text, begin to connect, and begin to pressure them for more commitment, for the relationship to tip to the next phase, they begin to indulge in some self-sabotaging behaviors, maybe not calling the person back, shouting or behaving in a certain way that shuts down the relationship, and the relationship goes back to, disintegrate, or goes back to friendship zone. And then they start, oh, I don't know what happened. Then they start again. They just have that circle that keeps happening and happening. Sometimes it's because they are so afraid of getting intimate with someone, or getting close, connecting with someone. So sexual traumas of the past can be a challenge, can be a reason for that. Another reason is, apart from sexual traumas from the past, sometimes sexual addiction. All right. Some people are addicted to pornography. Some people are addicted to, they behave like monogamous people, but they are polygamous in their thinking. All right. So they can't stay with one partner. It's difficult for them. They have to move all over the place. So by the time they go about getting sexual, emotional satisfaction from everybody and everything else, there's nothing left to give to the spouse. And that's one of the reasons that leads to emotional anorexia. Because the question here is, why is it that some couples are unable to build intimacy, to build emotional connection with their spouses? Sometimes because they are all over the place, connecting with everyone else, but they are unable to connect with their own spouse. Sometimes about attachment issues that they have. All right. If you grew up in a home where your parents abandoned you and probably transferred you to somewhere else where they treated you so harshly, and you were constantly moving around. For example, your parents, maybe your dad was a military officer, or your parents were civil servants that they were constantly being transferred from one place to the other. You find yourself finding it difficult to build connection with people, because each time as a child, while you were settling into a school, the next thing they've moved you away from that school. So you might end up doing year 1 here, year 1.5 here, year 2 here, year 3 there. After a period of time, you get used to not building intimacy and connection with people, because what's the point? It's going to end very abruptly without any warning. All right. There are some people who, when their parents had some challenges in the past, their parents sent them to live with an uncle or with an auntie that abused them. And so they got to resent intimate relationship because intimate relationship caused them immense pain. If this is you, don't punish your spouse. All right? Seek help. Seek help and get yourself fixed. Otherwise, your spouse will think they are the problem, that they are not enough for you. And it's a tormenting thing to put them through. All right? So if those are your issues, you have attachment issues, you have sexual addiction, or you have been sexually traumatized as an individual when you were much younger, seek help. These are some of the key reasons why people are unable to build intimacy. So you'll be wondering, they'll go read the books, they'll go to the seminars, but they are unable to do it because it's like telling someone who has a disability in something to move like every other person. No, that's not a level playing field. That's why legislation will tell you that you have to make reasonable adjustments for people who have unique challenges. You can't put them on the same pedestal like every other person. That's why we even created Paralympics, because you cannot put everybody on the same pedestal. All right, you have to make reasonable adjustment for people who have challenges in some area. So if your spouse has emotional or intimacy challenges, you have to make reasonable adjustment for them because they cannot be intimate like every other person. That's why I'm recommending the person to get help, because it's very expedient to do so. Very expedient. Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you so much. I mean, I like the depth you brought to it, the perspective, depth of perspective. Now you're talking about adjustments, okay, that they need to make. We will come back to that, okay. At least I know some would need to make some, would need to see some therapists. Some would need to see some medical practitioners, okay, to fix that. But for practical things spouses can do, we will come to that. But before then, you know, I was just thinking, someone might be sitting there and thinking, how do I even know if my marriage, if we are emotionally connected, right? So with that in mind, I think it's important that we share the signs of emotional intimacy. Yes, signs of emotional disconnection, all right? Emotional disconnection. Things that will tell you that the emotional intimacy is not in place, okay? And then you need to take steps to do certain things. So we'll talk about the signs first, and then we'll talk about steps that people can take. One of the things, when I was speaking earlier, one of the benefits, I said quality sex life. So that tells you that if you are in a sexless marriage, then you would, that's a sign that there's emotional disconnection. Okay. And when we talk about sexless marriage, this is really extreme. It's an extreme case because, of course, there are periods that couples go without having sex. Okay. Sometimes it's because they're busy. Sometimes it's because they're stressed. Okay. Or one person is worn out. So there are times like that, or there's a target, they're trying to meet up with something, and they just put sex, you know, to the back burner. They push it to the back burner. All right. But when you go on without sex for so long, because, you know, when I was speaking, I said in the course of having sex, bonding hormones are released. So it's just important that spouses help. That's what makes you a couple. Okay, there's the bit of companionship, partnership, and what have you. But you should be having sex if you're married. You should. Okay, so if you're going on for a long time, protracted period without it, then that might be a sign. So it calls for you to look inwards to see what adjustments can be made. We'll be coming to that shortly. Then another sign is when something happens, when something that impacts you emotionally happens, the last person you want to contact is your spouse, right? You would rather speak to other people about it. You go out to seek emotional support from others than your spouse. Then you need to check that. And when we're speaking about this, we're not discounting the importance of having support systems, right? Every couple should have support systems. You should have other couples around you who are also doing marriage the right way, because that helps us. That keeps you in place. That makes you also understand that you're human. Okay, there are challenges you go through. You then realize, oh, okay, there are other couples going through that, and then you get up and you get on the ride. Okay, but when it's so bad that the last person you want to think about to discuss about that emotional distress is your spouse, then I think that's a sign of emotional disconnection. Okay. Another thing, I'll say one more and then I'll let you speak, is when you spend quality time with others, when you prefer spending quality time with others, right? And sometimes I was speaking with someone and she said that's her own way of helping herself out of loneliness. We understand that there are a lot of people who are in marriage who are lonely. Yes, it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
right? We should be looking out for the needs of the other. You should take time, and that's where Gottman was pushing the concept of emotional bank accounts. That I pay attention to my spouse's bank account. Am I feeling it? Am I making the right deposit? It's okay to make deposits, but are you making positive deposits in there, right? Are you meeting your spouse's needs? So you couples must get to that point where they enjoy spending quality time. But we've also come to know that certain things impact on quality time, on that experience. Okay, like you were speaking about resentment earlier, when people just get to that point where they resent the other for something. Okay, so we are putting out signs for you to look out for, signs that would let you know, okay, we're emotionally disconnected, but that's not the end of the road. There is hope, and we'll be sharing about that shortly. So I'll let you share some points.
Wow, these are really, really nice point you share there, really, really nice points. To add some point to that, yeah, let's keep the conversation coming. Really good. To
Okay,
add some
can I
point to
share
that.
what he said? Sorry,
Yes,
can I
please,
just
go
take
ahead.
this and then
Yes.
he's saying benefits for him has been living with the freedom to be me with no resentment for my partner because we settle issues as it comes. That's brilliant. Love is nurtured by the truth we share and the freedom to be true. Whoa, I like that. The freedom to be true. The freedom to be true. That I can be in the relationship and honestly express how I feel, honestly show who I am. That's really brilliant. That's good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Fantastic. That's really deep. Really deep. All right, guys, tell us signs you look out for when people are going through what do you call it now, or when emotional intimacy is disconnected. All right, let's keep that conversation going. So the other thing I want to point out is one of the signs is that your spouse used to complain about something that they don't like that you do. You get to that point where they just stop complaining. All right, so maybe you are someone who chronically comes late about everything, even to your own wedding. You go late. Some people will say some people even go late to their own burial. That's an extreme. But you go late about everything, interviews, you go late, and that is really, really ticking off your spouse. And it gets to that point where they can't be bothered anymore. All right. They just got into that point where they become aloof and emotionally disconnected because they've seen that it doesn't matter what I'm going to say. This person is bent on being like this. Once your spouse stop caring and stop complaining, that means there is a disconnection. All right. So, and they are telling you whatever you ask them, say it's fine. Is it this one? It's fine. Is it that one? It's fine. Everything is fine because they want to minimize interaction with you. Because in their head, emotionally, they have disconnected from you. Don't assume that things are fine. Chase them down and try to resolve the issue. Because the thing about emotional issues is that if you don't address them, they kind of grow and spiral out of control. All right? We've seen people who have been living in extreme resentment with each other, keeping malice, and you ask them what exactly is the issue, and they are mentioning things that don't really make sense to you. Why is it not making sense to you? Because you think this is too insignificant to cause this level of damage. Sometimes it's not about those issues. It's because that's the only thing they can remember. There are many things that have happened that they did not address. So because they did not address it, the issue has grown and grown and grown to the point where they can't even remember what created the whole mess in the first place. Not a good thing. The last point I'd like to mention is when people become really, really selfish. When people become really, really selfish, where, everything they do, they only think about themselves. So, for example, you have a spouse that you guys are trying to put money together to make an investment, and it just goes and takes the money, sends to family back home, or do this, send to without your consent, or just buy something without your consent, or become really reckless, or begin to do things only for themselves. Like Jimmy Evans will say, marriage is brutal on selfish people. Marriage is brutal. The way marriage was designed by God, you cannot survive being selfish. You cannot be selfish and be happy in marriage. It's not possible. They are mutually exclusive. All right? Yeah, they are mutually exclusive. So when you get to that point where everything you are doing, your spouse seems to be sabotaging it because they're only thinking about me, myself, and I, that is a sign that can lead to emotional disconnection, because you just get to that point where, you know what, you do you, I do me. You begin to hear those kind of fancy words. Do you, I do me. I just want my peace of mind. I just want my emotional health. I don't want issues. I don't want those kind of conversations, that does my head in. That's another one I heard. So there are different, when people get to that point, emotionally, they will shut down from that spouse. Emotionally. All right? It's like when you go to take a jab, an injection, and every time someone is stabbing you. Next time you're coming, or maybe you guys are doing hide and seek. And then next time you are walking through, your spouse jumps and say, whoa, and you are scared. They do that again and again. After a while, what happens? When you begin to open doors, you are ready. You are getting ready to protect yourself from sudden fear or sudden, humorous laughter. That's what happened. That's why a lot of people are emotionally. This is how they are. So they can't really connect. They are protecting themselves from another disappointment, another bad story, another bad news, another reckless behavior. So once spouses are at that phase, they are emotionally disconnected. All right. And they want to minimize interaction. They want to minimize conversations. They want to minimize collaborative efforts, anything that will bring them together, because it causes pain. That is a sign of emotional disconnection.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so we've got a lot of we've got some questions. Okay, so I think we should take.
Yes, interesting. Right? Let's keep them coming.
So, Bukola Jelibo is asking, can too much complaint lead to disconnection as well? Complaining too much, can that lead to disconnection?
Yes, I like the emphasis too much, because complaining in themselves are not bad. All right, complaining is actually feedback. Someone is giving you feedback. I don't like how you manage time. I don't like how you disorganize the room. I don't like how you shut me down in public. That's feedback. How else will you know something that is in your blind spot if someone doesn't bring it forward? In customer service, we teach that complaining is gold. If your customer doesn't complain, you are in trouble. All right? Because they will vote with their feet. They will go somewhere else for the service or the products. So if your spouse is complaining about something, he or she is giving you feedback. But there is a borderline. That's why I like too much. When it becomes too much, it can lead a spouse to tune you off in their head. All right? You just know that, oh, she's going to complain about this. Oh, he's going to complain about this. And what happens? Children also do this a lot. When they say, my dad.
Sorry about that.
Yes. Okay. Children do this a lot as well. A situation whereby their parents are complaining about something. So what happens? They just get to that point. They just say that, my parents will complain anyway. So they just they build resistance to their parents' voice. A lot of us did that as children. You just build resistance. As your parents are talking, you're just like, yeah. You're just rolling your eyes, just finish, let me go. It can happen between couples as well. So sometimes the approach of going aggressive may not work. You might decide to change your strategy. All right. Remember, your goal is that your spouse will hear you and make reasonable adjustments. All right. If that is your goal, keep your focus on the goal and then keep changing the strategy. Keep changing the tactics. So sometimes it might be pillow talk. Some other times it might be movie that will point that out. Some other times it might be a mentor that you talk to. Some other times it might be prayer. Pray to God about it, and you just see your spouse just stop doing that stuff. So there are different approaches, but keep your eyes on the goal. The issue here is sometimes people get sidelined and they just enjoy the complaining because the complaining gives emotional relief. Let me just say my mind the way I feel. No, that's not your intention. Your intention is better behavior, and let's focus on that. Thank you for that question. Brilliant question.
Yeah. Thank you. I like that. And I think this just speaks to the fact we were talking about earlier, where we need to have an emotionally safe environment, where it's a state of emotional safety. If that state is in place, couples would feel comfortable to air how one feels. Okay. And but the distinction must be made between too much of it. So it's not good not to express how you feel. You must express your feelings. You should express your feelings in an emotionally intimate relationship, okay, but not too much of it. Okay, so let's take another question. Thank you for that. We have Chukwe Kezie Helen asking, what happens when a partner is not ready to talk about things that need to be talked about?
Wow. That's a very deep question.
Yeah.
When a spouse is not ready to talk about the things that need, okay, there might be different reasons for that. Sometimes it's because the conversation that happened about a similar issue in the past had not yielded any fruits. So, for example, some spouses are chronic apologists, in quotes. They know how to quickly apologize because in their heads, as long as I apologize, she should get over it. So the moment they just come, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. They're ready to apologize. So their spouses now get to that point where they now discover that this person is not really remorseful. They are only throwing meaningless apology that lacks credibility, that lacks content, that lacks empathy, that lacks reasoning. So you get to that point where you are telling them, maybe you now notice that you've done another thing that is not making your spouse happy. You want to apologize, you want to have the conversation. They're thinking there is no point having this conversation with you because you're not going to change. This is who you are, and I want to accept who you are, the way you are, And so that's one reason. Another reason is that there are some people, when you complain about something, they will never listen. In fact, the conversation will lead to more trouble, to the point where you'll be asking yourself, what was the point of bringing this forward to this person? All right. So if every conversation that you have with someone close to you leads to bigger conflicts, that issue now becomes a small issue. A bigger issue now evolves. After a while, people will study and sit back and reflect and notice that pattern. Once they notice that pattern, they shut down conversation because they've seen that every conversation leads to bigger quarrels. Because some people are so narcissistic that they will do everything possible to rope you into that issue. And at the end of the day, you, who is the one being offended, you'll be the one apologizing. Because they will batter you and bully you with their words and bully you by withdrawing benefits from you until you come back crawling. That's another reason why people are not happy. 3, another reason why people may not be happy to do this is because they don't know how. If you grew up in a home where anytime there is conflict, people just go quiet and people just carry out, silent treatment. Look, people will have not developed the verbiage, the language, the words to use to negotiate and to resolve conflict without name calling. It's very difficult for such a person to come forward because it is scary. They don't know how to handle it. Another reason is sometimes you have a spouse who is all knowing, all can never be wrong. No matter what you say to them, they would never accept, because accepting it distorts their image of themselves. So rather than accepting that they are not perfect, they will come at you. So there are different reasons, but there are many more reasons, but these are the 4 reasons that we are discussing right now. But one thing we can say here is that it is always good to discuss and to talk about issues. How you talk about it is what matters. All right. Some people say everything is, you have to talk about, yes, but more importantly, you have to talk to someone who is paying attention, someone who is listening. I think somebody mentioned it. I think it was Adigwe that mentioned it. Active listening. All right. Sometimes people are talking about something and your spouse just tunes you off in their head. You can see that they are looking at you. They are hearing you, but they're not listening. All right. So these are very important. I hope we're able to address your question.
Okay. Another perspective I wanted to share is to do with personalities.
Yeah.
Okay. People who are not confrontational. This just goes, the analogy I would use here is that of the turtle and the skunk, right?
Yes.
The skunk comes out and sprays, is out there, and when it sprays, it releases bad odor, and the skunk is out, the thing is out there already. Okay, so for humans, that's like someone who just comes out and speaks his mind. Okay, he just says it the way he feels it, and it causes a lot of pain, but he sometimes not aware or just feels, I've just got to release it. Now, this turtle are those who are often, if they don't like confrontation, they avoid it as much as possible. So once they're stirred with confrontation, they go into their shell. So if you're married to that, if your partner is that kind of person who would avoid confrontation, you have to get to that point where you talk, you encourage your partner to come out and speak. Okay, and that would not happen if you, as the skunk, does not also learn how to present your argument, what you have to say. You would just know that coming out to say your mind the way you want to say it is not working. Every time you do it, your partner will just retreat, will go back into his or her shell. So when you've observed that after a period of being married, you should get to the point where you have a meeting. Really, we both need to work on ourselves. We did a video on emotional. Could your emotions be ruining your relationship? Yes, could your emotions be ruining? So it's important that we aspire towards emotional growth, right? It's uncomfortable, but we must build the emotional muscles required. Stretch. Okay, it's a place of uncomfortability for a turtle to come out and want to have some conversations, to get to that point where you say to your spouse, I want to talk, I want us to talk, because they don't like confrontation. Okay, and it's a place of emotional growth for the skunk to realize that I need to tone it back a bit. Okay, and probably try to lace my words with more grace, be more patient, find the proper timing. Timing is critical. Okay, in resolving any matter, timing is critical. So there are times you look at your spouse and you feel, okay, at this point it's not, I won't get anything in, so I need to find the right time. Okay, but we always emphasize that every issue must be resolved. If it's not resolved, it will become a monster. You must resolve it. Yes. Okay, so I hope we've answered your question. Please let us know. Right? We have Helen also saying, "Do me and you do you sometimes work so." As everyone rests and there's no issue. Hey, I think she's trying to that. Yes, please, because I think this must have been taken from what you said earlier. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. It works sometimes in the short term. All right. In the long term, it damages trust and damages relationship. So if you are playing a game, play the long game, play the bigger game. What am I saying? Sometimes some people will be driving their cars, they are hearing a certain sound, but because they are in a hurry, all right, they don't want to stop and check what the problem is. Even when they check, they just manage it temporarily, just do, do one or two things, let it just get me to where I'm going. It works in the short term, but in the long term, that car will break down irreparably. All right, that's what happens. It's like eating junk food. All right, you are eating junk food. It's working in the temporary, in the short term. It keeps you from being hungry, but in the long term, it damages your health, damages your capacity to sleep, it increases your blood sugar, puts you at the mercy of having diabetes. Think long term. All right. There is a man by the name Professor Banfield. Professor Banfield, I think it was a Harvard professor. He says something. It's called the law of the long-term perspective. The law of the long-term perspective. And he said this, and I quote it to you. Those who put into consideration more years when they are planning, they rise faster than those who think of now. All right? It's like the chicken and the eagle. The eagle sees far, thinks long term. The chicken is just focusing on the next meal, the next meal, the next meal, the next meal. They are not the same. They are both birds, but they are not the same. All right? This one is the king of birds. This one is just something people eat around. Right? Think long term. It will do your marriage much good. It will do you much good if you think long term.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to round up very quickly, but Esther here is saying you can't be selfish and have a happy marriage, just alluding to what you said earlier. And then Tony is saying exactly, Esther, reiterating that. Okay, so let's talk about what adjustments spouses can make in order to have emotional intimacy in place. I'll just share a few points. One would be to work on their manner of speaking. We talked about communication. It is crucial to having emotional intimacy. So just work on your manner of speaking. I used the skunk and turtle earlier. You may want to adopt that, to think that, okay, I may need to watch what I say, lace my words with more grace, that it might minister, that my words will be seasoned with salt, that it might minister grace to its hearers. We must get to that point where we practice this. Okay, let your words not add salt, to be like adding salt to a wound. Okay, there are times some spouses are already wounded. Okay, so imagine when your words begin to slice through those wounds. That won't be fair. Okay, it's like the way you often say, administering a surgery without anesthesia, right? Yeah. Okay, so we need to be careful how we speak. So get to that point where you realize that words can kill, and you don't want to kill the esteem of your spouse. You don't want to tear that man or woman down. Okay, so if my words won't minister grace to this person who I profess love for, I'll be careful how I use those words. Then another thing to do would be to explore your spouse's area of interest. Explore your spouse's area of interest. What does your spouse like? Because some people feel there's nothing bringing us together. We don't have that meeting point. We're talking about emotional contact earlier. Okay, there's nothing bringing us together. How about you explore your spouse's interest? What does your spouse like? Okay, you might need to do a bit of research into it and ensure that you, through that, minimize the disconnection between you. I'll let you speak a bit.
Yeah, please, for those of you who have joined us, post in the comment as well. What do you do to strengthen intimacy? What do you do in your own marriage, your own relationship, to strengthen emotional? We want to hear from you as well. Just to add a few points to that as well. One of the things that helps emotional intimacy is when people work on themselves to be healthy. All right, because you can't give what you don't have. If you are emotionally toxic as a person because of the kind of family you came out from, all right, where you are very sinister. Nobody around you does anything good. You are always criticizing everybody except yourself. You have to look at yourself and try to remove what do you call it, detox yourself. All right, because that toxicity is what you're going to bring in that relationship. So, and when you bring toxicity into a relationship, people begin to sever themselves from you. All right, your children begin to avoid you. Once you are coming home, he's coming home again. Oh, he's here again. Why? Because you cause pain anytime you're around. All right, that's three. Another one is determine the kind of marriage that you want. How intimate do you want? All right. So, and because emotional intimacy works when it's mutual. All right. Sometimes some people want intimacy. Sometimes their spouse don't want intimacy because they feel going too close means that they will lose their freedom. All right. Have a discussion about it and ask your spouse, how will you rate our marriage in terms of emotional connection? 10 being the highest, 0 being the least. How will you rate it? They will tell you, oh, 4, 5, 6. Ask them the next follow-up question. What do you think we need to do to get you to a 10? All right, you can do this, do this. Are you willing to do such thing? All right. If you cannot do this with yourself, get in touch with a coach, get in touch with us. We can help you guys to build an emotional, intimate marriage. This is what we do. This is why we set this video. This is why we set this ministry up, to help couples like you to build emotional intimacy, because there is a purpose for your family. There is a reason why you are here. If you don't build that emotional intimacy, you will not move as fast as you are supposed to move. You will not be able to achieve all you need to achieve, right? Because if you are in a covenant with someone, everything that the person does will impact your ability to move and live a full life. And that's it. That's the truth. So getting this right will really help you to gain mileage, achieve bigger things than you even beyond your imagination. All right. So determine the kind of marriage you want, the kind of intimacy you want, and then ask yourself, who do I need to become to be able to create that kind of relationship? All right. Very, very important that you look within instead of thinking your spouse is the problem. Your spouse, no, look at yourself in the mirror and find out what you can do. 5th point, create rituals. All right. Rituals, by rituals I mean activities that your family and your spouse, you and your family share. All right. So maybe communicate. For us in our home, we do shopping together, we bathe together, we eat together. These are our own activities, things that we do that bring us together. You also notice that sometimes, most times, we do color combination. These are activities that encourage conversation. All right. Very critical, very, very important. All right. We run ministry together. These are ways where we meet. All right. We do charity together. These are ways. So create activities where you and your spouse to constantly meet. Remember what we talked about, connection, emotional connection, getting emotional contact, things that will bring you to stay in touch with your spouse. Stay in touch with your spouse. 6, whatever your spouse has been complaining about, try to stop it. If your spouse complains that you keep interjecting, your spouse complains about your late coming to every event, your spouse complains about, something that you do that drives them crazy, because everybody has things that really drive them crazy. It might not drive somebody else crazy, but for them, it's crucial. Try to stop that. That is the starting point, because once you stop that, you will get your spouse's attention, and then you guys can begin to build going forward. Whatever you do is possible. All right. If you want us to help you, enroll on our Intimacy Builder program for married couples if you are married, for engaged couples if you are engaged, for singles if you are single, and we'll help you build the intimacy that you desire. All right. This is a very important. We've had testimonials of people that we have helped that have gone on from having average marriage to fantastic marriages. It's very possible. Once you know what to do, you can replicate it over and over again. You can even begin to teach other people. That's how powerful these things are.
Very phenomenal points. Thank you so much. That was so deep and intense. Thank you. I really enjoyed listening to you share that. And so we'll leave a link in the description box for those who are interested. Just hit on the link, fill it, and then we'll be in touch with you. We have seen people transform their marriages. We love the transformation we're seeing in our own marriage. So hey, you want to join us. If you're new to our channel, Foundation for Family Affairs, please subscribe and turn on the bell next to it so you're notified when we drop our content. Hey, it's been awesome doing this, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. Thank you for sharing the link. Thank you for just staying on and contributing. We've had a very rich conversation because of all the questions. Thank you so much. Okay, next week, like he said, we'll be having financial intimacy. You want to join us? Make it a date with us. We have something super to share with you next week. Until come your way again next week. See you on the other side. You want to say anything to them?
Bye, guys. You guys are fantastic. Thank you.